Hey, this is Michael Lindsay from Vital MX. We're out here at Milestone today and we're riding Justin Brayton's Bullfrog Spa's MotoConcepts Racing Honda CRF450R. Now this is his actual race bike straight from Vegas. This is the Monday after the weekend. Tony and his crew were nice enough to bring the bike straight down from the race, just washed up, still had the same graphics, tires, bars, everything just for us to go out and ride today. So what makes this bike really interesting is it's a complete supercross build, but it's also a bike that 99% of the parts on it are basically available to the public. A few people have been confused this year. It's not an HRC bike. MotoConcepts develops this bike with their partners. The only two parts on it that really aren't quite available to the public is the Showa suspension has a few parts in it, and then a brake caliper that Honda allocates to Justin. Beyond that, this bike is completely available to purchase practically. Everything on it has a purpose. In the case of the engine, everything is done by Chad at XPR Motorsports. That's including all of everything mechanical to the engine, to the electronics. And the bike's really, really freed up for a 450. Especially for anybody that might be on an older one going to this, you would swear you've almost jumped on a two-stroke. Something that Justin and the rest of the team were looking for is a bike that felt very free all over the place, from the acceleration on to the way the actual 450 feels revving up, also the way it decels into the corner. One of the few little unique things in the engine that maybe somebody can't get is it does have a little bit of different first gear that Honda was able to get Justin. It allows him to basically hit those tight little triples right out of the corner without having to worry about clutch feel or anything, just being able to basically point and shoot. So most people think first gear is useless. These guys can jump some pretty decent size hits with it. Beyond that, what's really impressive is you'd think the rest of the transmission has changed and isn't. Second feels insanely wider than the stock bike, and it's all down to electronics and engine work on how it allows the bike to pull. The gearing actually was up a tooth in the rear, but I would swear that it had a completely different transmission with how usable it was through the bottom three gears. Power-wise, it's probably a similar comment that you've heard to most test riders say about a factory bike these days is, yes, it has a ton of power everywhere. It is so hard to ever get the opportunity to crack this bike wide open. But at the same time saying that, it's also so usable. It's so electric and connected feeling. For every little bit of throttle input gain you give this bike, it's always there and ready. It doesn't really matter where in the RPM range you are, what gear position you're in. When you grab an extra handful, it has this snap and performance at all times. You never really feel like the bike has a delay or any kind of a bog or cutout in any way. Coming over from an engine that has a ton of development time and input, we actually move over to a chassis that is surprisingly production. That's because JB and the other riders on the team really enjoy the current Honda package and don't want to mess that up. So the only real changes to the bike is a 1mm longer pull rod and a front engine mount, a little titanium one that they get made by a provider specifically for Justin's feel. Other than that, the other engine hangers on the bike, all the hardware is stock. This is really not to add any rigidity to the entire frame, to keep the flex and feel that they're looking for. Now I think the last big talking point is really the controls, the cockpit, the little things that JB sets up for himself. I mean, the guy's been in the game for quite a while now, so he definitely has his little intricacies and things he likes. One of the first things that really stood out to me is I have not seen a pro in a long time run his handlebars in a forward position. It's usually, you see a lot of guys with the lap bars, a lot of them that the angle of the bar is even with the forks. JB's is actually upright. It's a little bit forward. He's a very forward riding guy. He's one of the few guys that has the really good old school style in the whoops where he's centered in the bike and allows it to dance under him. He's very forward in the rhythm. He pushes through really good. Part of why he's so good in Supercross, he makes up all this time in the whoops and the rhythms, and he compromises his setup to make sure he's up and in that position ready to take on all that energy. Little things with the controls, real thin throttle tube they machine down, gives him a real unique feel, so he gets rid of arm pump. It has a really good grasp on the throttle. His clutch lever is a unique bend that a lot of HRC guys have used in the past. It's a very long, straight lever that has a lot of actuation length to it, gives him a very precise feel in the clutch. Justin is one of those guys that really relies on the clutch everywhere on the track, so everything about that setup has to be very precise for him. All in all, the MCR Honda is just a really interesting bike because of the package. There is the one or two unique things Justin gets from Honda, but then the rest of the bike is a combination of off-the-shelf components like the Yoshimura exhaust, same one people can go out and buy. Some of the stuff that's just really been developed around the team, like the lower flywheel weight, some of the stuff in the engine, but still stuff that you can hit up the right guys and buy. even down to little selective parts like running a 110 rear tire because all the riders on the team prefer it. They feel like it's safer in most conditions. With the Supercross triples, they rut out, the rut out whoops on the East Coast, just that it doesn't catch. It adds more consistency to their riding. Just all this shows how much effort they put into taking all their resources and building a bike that won a Supercross main this year, nearly finished on the podium overall, and got JB to sign a 2-year extension. And realistically, this bike could be built for a third, if not a quarter, of the factory 450 machines in the class.